You found the Just Right Snowboard channel. I'm Lars Horstman, and today I'm going to try to answer a question that I keep getting over and over again. And that is, where should I mount my bindings on my new snowboard? In order for me to give you some good pointers along these lines, we need to look at one figure that hopefully every manufacturer is stating on their boards, and that is reference stance. And the reference stance is basically a figure that consists of two numbers. The one thing is a certain stance width, but also the setback over the effective edge. Effective edge is the edge between the two widest spots of your snowboard, and on a directional board where there's some form of setback stated in your snowboard spec sheet, that means that the insert packs, those two sets of inserts here, are basically moved towards the tail by that number on the effective edge. Now, I've made a video before that is carrying the thumbnail title Know Your Snowboard, I think. And basically in that video I'm diving deeper into this. You should definitely watch that because there's some confusion. Some manufacturers state setback on the effective edge. I want to say that's most of them. But some manufacturers also state the setback on the physical length of the snowboard, which is kind of nonsensical, but whatever, I'm not going to go into that right now. So we're going to keep it simple here, and I'm going to start with a board where that is actually stated and marked on the board. So basically, if you buy a K2 board like this one here, K2 Simple Pleasures, from a while ago, you see a marked insert pack right here and here, and then on the board or in the spec sheet on the home page or on that sticker on the back of the board, it tells you what that is. In this case, K2 moved the stance back by 3/4 of an inch, and it is a stance width of 21 inches. Now, if you want to start riding a new snowboard and this does not match your preference, then that is mostly a matter of your stance width not matching, right? So the key here is, if you don't want to mess with the setback of the board, you would want to move your stance. Let's say you need your stance wider than the 21 inches. You would want to move out evenly from your reference marks or inwards evenly from the reference mark. As soon as you, so envision your legs on this being like a triangle, that's the center right here. And as soon as you only move one side, the center of that triangle also moves to the back or to the front. And as soon as you have to basically only move one of the two legs to achieve your stance width, you're messing with a setback. Now that is not a big deal. No terrible things will happen if you move one insert out, forward or backward, whatever. But there are a couple things to understand about that. So basically, in case of this board, you're looking at 21 inches. So, side note, I don't understand why manufacturers still go in inches when the actual inserts are exactly 20 millimeters / 2 centimeters apart. It doesn't make any sense. So 21 inches is 53.3 centimeters or something like that. So that's like a super odd number, right? They should have just gone with 53 and called it a day. Anyways, so you are moving 20 millimeters outwards as you go per side. So if you want to change your stance width into a wider stance without changing the setback, you would have to move 4 centimeters further apart. And that is quite a bit, going from 53 to 57 centimeters. That's quite a step. So quite often, and that is where this question is coming from, that doesn't work out for people. So they go, well, I'm kind of in between. I don't know which foot to move where. And that is what this little guide here is mainly going to be about. I'm going to need my trusty old little cardboard twin tip for this. That's doing a really good job. It's very easy to demonstrate all these things on that little sample. So if you have a twin, this scenario is really easy, right? Like your inserts are placed symmetrically over the board's physical length, over the side cut of the board. It's basically all perfectly symmetrical. And I want to say we can imagine it's kind of odd to ride a snowboard with more tail than nose, so moving yourself further towards the nose. So I want to say in a scenario where you are reference stance right here, center of your insert packs, and you feel like I need to be a little bit wider, you want to move your back foot one notch back, right? So one thing to understand when you move only one of the feet in regards to setback is, since this is a 20 millimeter step between your inserts, your center is going to move by 10 millimeters in that direction. So if that's your legs and you move both bindings towards the tail by 20 millimeters, then of course your center here also moves 20 millimeters. However, if you only move one by 20 mil, then your center only moves half of the way. So that's something to bear in mind if you want to be that precise about your numbers here. So anyways, I think on a true twin, pretty straightforward. You want to move your back foot one notch back. In an ideal world, you have a set of bindings where you can center your boot across the board by adjusting the heel cup, basically by adjusting the binding size. As an example, Union and Bent Metal both do that. There's many other companies, but just as an example, so you want to adjust boot centering with the heel cup, and then you can run the mounting disc of your binding with the slots going longitudinally, so with the board. So that allows for you to basically take both your bindings and move them outwards or inwards on the mounting disc. So you don't need to take these big steps here between inserts. That's obviously the best. And then you can keep riding your true twin with a truly centered stance. Sorry to interrupt the flow. This channel content is brought to you solely by myself, and it is taking up more and more of my time to answer all your questions in the comments. I never wanted to put like a subscription-based support platform into action, like Patreon, for example. So I went with a little tipping platform, and that is called buymeacoffee.com/JUSTPADRIDE. And there you can, if you want to, show your gratitude in case I have helped you with my content in form of buying me a coffee, which is just symbolic. And it is basically just a little tip that will keep me going here. Thank you very much. The ones of you who have already done that know who they are, and I truly appreciate it. Let's get back to our content. Then there is that breed of boards, which is probably the lion's share of the market, that is directional twins. Those can be all kinds of different things. Let's assume we're looking at a board that is non-tapered, meaning tip and tail at the widest points have the exact same width. And the manufacturer basically just decided, let's give that thing a little bit more nose and let's set the inserts back by 20 mil, which is not that much. So then you have what you would call a directional twin. There are other definitions of that shape, but that's probably a fairly common one. So let's just envision this little cardboard thingy is 20 millimeters set back. Now, if you, as I explained earlier, only want to move one foot and you move the back foot back to get wider, then your stance setback is going to go from 20 millimeters to 30 millimeters. Now, that is going more towards a free ride kind of approach rather than a freestyle kind of approach. So if you're on a directional twin like that, you can basically simply ask yourself, what's my approach to the mountain? If I ride switch a ton, I might actually want to move my front foot one notch further forward rather than my back foot one notch further back. That way I reduce a little bit of nose length, but I already have an extended nose past the contact point, so I'm not really doing that much harm, and I probably get a slightly more twinish feeling being a little bit closer to the center of the side cut. So I would always move back because I like more nose than tail, and I kind of want to have that impression when I ride somewhat clearly rather than guessing I have a bit more nose. So I would always move that 1 foot back. But for someone who is doing like all kinds of side hits all day and is spinning a bunch and riding switch a bunch on a directional twin with, let's say, 20 mil setback, you might actually want to move the front foot 1 notch forward. Okay, now things are going to get a little bit more complicated. So back to our K2 Simple Pleasures, very heavily tapered, fully directional board. And let's say your stance width here, our 3/4 inch setback with 53.3 centimeters is just not quite enough for you, and you need to go to 55.3, which is 20 mil further apart. Which way to move? You could argue theoretically, well, I got so much more nose, whatever, I'm just going to move further forward. Now, this is the interesting part, and again, referring to my video Know Your Snowboard and many other of my videos where I talk about these intricacies. On a tapered board with a narrower tail than nose, this is all a little bit funnier, and I have one very simple way to find out a little bit more about your board, and that is simply measuring the width of the board under each of those reference marks and go from there. So we're going to do that on this board. Need glasses for this. Under my front foot, this board measures roughly 28.7 centimeters at the reference mark, and under the back foot it measures 27.6. So this board is wider under the front foot than it is under the back foot. What does that tell us? If I go back to my old cardboard friend, where on this true twin my board width under each foot is definitely exactly the same because the whole thing is symmetrical. What that tells us is, let's pretend I move this insert pack further forward to achieve a narrower board under that back foot here, that I will then no longer be in the center of the side cut of the board. Personally, I like being in the center of the side cut because then I can compress the board right in its center of that curve, and I don't have to think about like which leg I am putting more pressure on. But boards like this, Simple Pleasures, pretty surfy kind of thing, you want to be a little bit back foot heavy anyways. That's this kind of surf inspired riding style. So the back foot really is a little bit closer to the center than the front foot. Therefore, it is a little bit narrower under the back foot. So when you push a little bit more onto that back foot in your surfy kind of riding style, you're actually pushing a little bit more into the center of the board. Now, if you want to ride that way, that's sweet. Go ahead and do so. I never rode this board that way, except for on day one, when I very quickly realized I noticed that excessive width under the front foot compared to my back foot. I could feel the tail kind of wash out on me a lot, and I didn't really like that. So I started, literally this board taught me about this. Took me about a week to figure out what was really going on. So I figured, you know what, like it's got to be the width of the board under the back foot. It's really narrow. So I went ahead and I moved this whole thing back. And what I actually ended up doing is I moved the front foot all the way back, which gets me to 28.4 millimeters, and the back foot also all the way back, which gets me to 27.8. So the difference is much less, and I achieved a stance width of 55.3 centimeters, which kind of is for me the widest that I want to ride, but it worked quite well. And I suddenly felt how that board rode a little bit more balanced. Like I felt, I didn't feel this crazy difference anymore between front and back foot width. So anyhow, if you are struggling with stance width and you need to move only one foot to achieve your desired width, and you are on a tapered directional shape where the tail is narrower than the nose, measure underfoot width and place yourself somewhat close to the center of the side cut. Center of side cut would be dead on, same numbers under each foot, but really that's not necessary. I'm just giving that out as a guideline so you have a starting point of where to go. Now, if your board doesn't actually have any kind of marks on your insert packs, like on this Stranda Mackerel here, then that is also not a big problem. You can basically assume that on a board like this, the reference stance width would be the very center of each insert pack here, center to center, and then the setback that will likely be stated on either the homepage or the specs sheet on the board. I believe on the Mackerel it's something like 40 or 45 millimeters. Yeah, anyways, this particular board here is like the Simple Pleasures, a little bit wider under the front foot than under the back foot, but by far not that much wider. So this is only, I believe, 6 or 7 millimeters wider under the front foot. And funny enough, when I ride this thing on groomers, which I do quite a bit, it's a super nice carver, I actually move both feet. I ride the 53 centimeters and I move both feet towards the tail. And that places me pretty much in the center of the side cut. And I personally find that's where that board rides best on groomers, because I don't like pushing my back foot all the time. But that is a preference and you can obviously do with that whatever you want. So to wrap this up, I want to emphasize that to me, reference stance is much more about the insert location in regards to setback on the board than it is about the exact stance width, because obviously we are all built differently and we all need different stance widths to feel comfortable riding. So basically what I consider there the most is like, where are these inserts placed? How much setback did the manufacturer consider? And what am I gonna make of that? So as long as you move equally outwards from the very narrowest option, you are not messing with the setback, and within that pattern, you kind of just want to find your stance width. One thing that is to be understood there is just physics. The narrower your stance, the more you're pushing into the center of the board, and that can be beneficial when you are carving, when you are decambering the board, pushing into the center for more grip. So narrower stances quite often lend themselves better for carving, depends a bit on the board flex as well. While a wider stance obviously gives you a wider platform and therefore a little bit more stability for bigger jumps, or like if you're riding super fast, big mountain freeride lines. I personally in those scenarios prefer a little bit of a wider stance than I choose for carving. But that is all stuff that you kind of just want to play with yourself, and I'll put a bunch of videos into the description of this video here for you to look at, to dive into, because I'm talking about these things in many other of my videos. All right, I hope you can take something away from this and it helps you to set up your new board. And yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. Otherwise, like and subscribe, share it with your friends. Hopefully I see you out there. Take care and keep turning.